Hello and welcome to our budget special series on the hits and misses for startups in Budget 2018. The startup sector had been asking for an exemption from angel tax, faster shutdowns, and removal of angel tax and fair price valuations in the budget. However, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has disappointed a few, but also pleased a few in this budget. The Finance Minister has announced an increased allocation for MSMEs. He has also addressed a few concerns of the alternative investment funds. However, the demand of crowdfunding of startups has not been met. The issue of angel tax has also not been met. The government has also said that it opposes cryptocurrency, but it supports blockchain. Several startups have been receiving tax notices in the past. To touch upon what Modi government hit and missed for the startup sector before it goes into elections in 2019, we have a grand panel today. Please join me in welcoming Shailesh Vikram Singh, Executive Director, Seed Fund and founder of Go Massive Incubator. Thank you. Shailesh has been an investor in Redbus, Carwale, Chumbak, Done by None, Printo and Bunik, and many others. Please welcome Kunal Khattar, founding partner of Advantage Capital Partners. Kunal has been an investor in Rapido, Shuttle, Truly Madly, Scoop Whoop, Zopwop and many others. Please also welcome Ishan Singh, founder and CEO of RevStart Incubator. He has invested in The Beer Cafe, Little Black Book, Peabody and many others. Please also welcome Amrinder Dhaliwal, Chief Product Officer of IndiaMart. He has also been an entrepreneur starting Done by None and also been associated with India Times Shopping. Please also welcome our esteemed audience, which comprises of startup founders and also B School and Economic School students. So, Shailesh, what's your ranking for the budget? From 1 to 10, how do you rank? Is it negative for startups? And overall, how do you rank the budget? And what did you think that the finance minister missed for startup sector?
So I won't get into the ranking per se.
I know
overall.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think it's a good budget in a way that it is no event budget, and that's where the budget should be. I think we are playing too much emphasis to the budget.
A no event budget for startups, you mean?
Yeah, it's a no event for everybody should be, because it's a budget of the government finances, right? Why we should worry about? The majority of the indirect tax has anyway covered by the GST. So the UK government now no longer can do anything with the indirect taxes. So GST has taken care of it. Only some direct taxes there, here and there. So that way, I think budget has to become non-event, and I think we are going to that path where in 2 or 3 years' time, like all other countries, the budget will become a non-event. So that way, it is good way. It is a very, very non-event budget. I think the biggest challenge with all the budget has been the more of the implementation side. I think it's a very high time that the government should also start talking of what they did last year and what they achieved, and I think that's a huge challenge. So startup, I think there are a lot of disappointments. We were expecting some clarity on the angel tax, we were clarity on the crowdfunding. Unfortunately, they have not come. But again, as I said, they should be not the preview of the budget. They are more the preview of the SEBI and other independent bodies, and I think they will take care of it. So overall, I'm fine with the budget. It should be a non-event budget. Okay,
it's a non-event budget for startups for Shailesh, but Kunal, what do you think? 1 to 10, how do you rank the budget?
Well, if you're an impact investor,
sure.
I would give it an 8 or 9.
All right.
This is clearly an election budget.
Okay. It's an election budget.
Towards the budget. If you look at a majority of the announcements were in the area of which has the highest level of impact, whether it was education, health or agriculture. So I'm sure there are a lot of benefit that will come out of, especially from a funds point of view, that are looking at investments which have high impact. But otherwise, I would agree to a large extent to say that, budgets are becoming less and less important. I think what's more important is maybe from next year onwards, the first part of the budget should be spent on creating a data and a scorecard in terms of what we achieved given last year's budget. I think that's the way we should go about it to increase accountability. Otherwise, to a large extent, budgets really go about making large announcements with large numbers. What really gets implemented during the course of the year is what is never really checked upon. And I think that's very important. If they were to introduce that, I think the relevancy of budgets would become important again.
Okay, the relevancy of budget is going away, but What do you think, Ishan? I mean, your crucial demand of removal of angel tax, we have not seen in the speech. Maybe it's there in the annexures. We still need to read the fine print. But how do you rank the budget, and how do you rank it as an investor?
So, I would have loved to say no news is good news,
Okay.
right? Because I think the biggest problem in India is that there is very limited predictability from investors' point of view. Why does every year's budget have to tinker with long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains? So if you're trying to make a financial decision based on certain metrics, you want your predictability. So I think it's every year they're changing things. Invest in mutual funds, now you pay dividend distribution tax. Don't pay dividend distribution tax. So I think for certain financial metrics, there should be a certain window of 5-10 years where there's stability. So I think from any investor's point of view, predictability and stability of policy is very important. That's part A. Secondly, if you look at, I think some of the other people also talked about it, from the budget needs to be delinked with capital market reforms. We all expect the budget to give big bang announcements. But if you look at some basic things which we, as the investor community asked for, whether it's removal of angel tax or whether it's to allow equity crowdfunding, I sincerely hope that this matter will be taken up by SEBI and there will be some kind of press note announcement
outside the budget.
Outside the budget for it.
Right. But you do want it, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Absolutely. Look, I gave example earlier of one of the notes I written of Kickstarter, right?
Right.
14 million people have contributed $3.5 billion into varied projects, and it's just institutionalizing giving. Suppose anyone in the audience has a project, they can go in, and the government should just leave the sector alone. The government should not be here to police if I want to give 5 lakh rupees to a startup or not give 5 lakh rupees to a startup. It's my wish and desire of my money I have earned. So I think from that point of view, I think no news was good news. They didn't try to put capital controls. They did have a point on cryptocurrency though, which I think in hindsight probably is a good thing, but more on that later.
Okay, we'll talk about cryptocurrency and bitcoins. Bitcoins, the government has said they don't consider it as legal tender. But Amarinder, how was the budget for SME, a small medium business in India? Yeah. And you have done by none, which shut down, and you have a lot of peeves against the exit clauses. If you want to say anything about, and also ranking the budget from 1 to 10, how do you rank it?
I have a slightly different point of view from my fellow panelists.
That's good. Yeah.
That budget is actually a point where you can make a statement of intent. Life goes on, but once a year, the government gets an opportunity to talk about big issues, big policies, and big changes that it wants to do, and it really lays the intent. So yes, there were compulsions. It's just before the elections, state elections and central elections.
Okay.
And we were anticipating some kind of balancing, but I would say personally, from the point of view of startups and SMEs, it's been more than a balance. I mean, there's a lot more unsaid, very little said.
Okay.
And what we wanted, heart of heart, hasn't happened. And if the committees could solve it, it could have been solved. So things like giving credit facilities to SMEs, giving access. I mean, there's an announcement of earmarking 3 trillion rupees. Which sounds a big number, but it's just a 20% raise over what happened last year.
Scheme. Yes. Yeah.
So there are these, and there is, of course, GST. Of course, we didn't expect any change in taxes, but expectation was again that directionally, in terms of how implementation is being done, there would be an intent on how it will be simplified. That intent hasn't come out. Coming to startups, there are various points which all of us are very anxious to know. We didn't get answers to those. We're just living with those. When you pointed out about bankruptcy proceedings.
Right, yeah.
Very, very important, because you all know
you
startups.
Started in 2011. You started your fashion e-commerce done by none, if anyone has shopped from that, in 2011. And you shut it down
2 years back.
2 years back. Is it still running on paper?
Yeah. So what happens is that 90% of the startups do end up not succeeding, only 10% succeed. And it's still easy to start a company, but it's very, very hard to actually close down a company in India. The tax authorities, the regulation keeps falling up when there is no business. So a lot needs to be done. If you're promoting startups, if you're promoting that culture, then it should be easy for entrepreneurs to move out of one business. You rarely go down creating 5-6 businesses to really come out successful. So how do you make sure that you transition from one business to the other? So that intent was missing out of this budget. So my rating would be 5 in this case.
5, okay. Still a rating of 5. Shailesh, if some of these guys, want to work in startups or also want to start up, has the budget given them anything? or they should not depend upon the government's policies and regulations?
Yeah, so the first thing,
Sure.
we don't expect anything from the
How
government.
many of you want to start up or work in a startup after you graduate?
Pretty good number.
Okay, some of them already have a startup, so we'll
Yeah.
come back to them. Yeah.
So I think I believe that the government should not be in the business of business, right? So we should not expect anything from the government. But again, as Amrinder has been talking about, it's very important for us to have a clarity. In India, I think unfortunately everything after some time become very hazy, right? I don't know whether it's a design or it's by default. So that perspective, government has not given anything. So I think life has not become simpler today to start a company, to close a company, to run company. I think you need more army of accountants and bureaucrats, everything to run it, right? The penalties are huge.
You have in India Mart. Can I just ask you that? How big is your CA team after the GST?
So
Rough idea.
We have a simpler life. I mean, we don't actually, we are an internet company, so we deal with people who deal with accountants.
Right.
And we really understand the pain and the complexity. It's really complex.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so as he said, so basically I think the government has initiated a lot of things, but again in the execution they have lost what I call lost in translation, which is very sad. So you can see the present government has a lot of good intentions, but those good intentions are falling apart on the ground because of the very poor execution or the need of the control. I think the government need to understand they are not in the business of providing, they are in the business of enabling. So that way I think the concept of Mudra bank is a very bad idea. You have to create an environment where every bank should be able to disburse at 8%, right? Why not? In India, if you look at FD rate is 6%, simple interest rate is around 4%, but still the lending rate is around 15%. So 15% of my capital, so if I am running a large company and my working capital, so almost 10% of my profit goes into the interest cost. It's huge, right? And if you reduce it, think why the India will grow, right? If interest rate comes to 8 to 9%, I think India will grow even 10% GDP. And I think that's where the government need to figure out rather than allocating large sums.
Right. Amrinder, he touched upon the issue of MSMEs and Mudra. Do you think MSMEs are not being benefited, especially about this 250 crore? He has increased from 50 crore to 250 crore, the corporate tax rate. Now it's 25% on those companies as well. So do you think it will give a big boost to the job creation, which has been depressed, if you guys are going for placements, by the way, which has been depressed in the last 12 to 18 months? So what's your take on that?
We have to just break it down into two different parts.
Sure.
So if you look at bigger companies, which are below 250 crores but have a sizable turnover, it's definitely a very positive decision because it will bring more cash, more money to invest with that corporate, and there is certainly going to be better job creation. But if you go down, I mean, bulk of the SMEs, and if you look at the credit distribution also, then only 17% of the credit actually goes to the smaller businesses. The credit from the formal banking sector, and rest of the credit is of course at 3% a month or 2.5% a month, very expensive. So these measures, especially only one measure that's been announced, is good for larger corporate, but for smaller SMEs where the biggest problem is working capital, and after demonetization, after GST, the problems have compounded, credit is still not available. And we are talking about digitization and having online filing, online transactions. The benefit of online filing, online transactions will happen if I can do my business online, and with that I can actually get credit. I mean, today the banking system gives credit on assets, and I don't have assets, or if I am an internet company, I still don't have assets. How do I get credit? So that problem has not been solved. That still needs to, at a policy level also, government needs to come out with initiatives and also support and clear direction that the money that is lying with these funds, it is going to be disbursed, and it is not going to be disbursed purely on assets.
Sure. So we'll also get to the a few startup founders who are there. From Grofers, we have Kshitij, and also from Quickstay, we have Jasveer. So Kshitij, how was the budget for you? Has anybody shot from Grofers, by the way, anytime?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of them have. So how was the budget for you, and will life become easier for Grofers? And you can also talk about the GST compliances that you were telling me you're having a hard time every day. So please tell.
Sure. So I think, like the panel has said, the budget was relatively neutral and probably did not really cover a lot of things which matter to us, right? And given the nature of Grofers'
So Mr. Jaitley did not cover a lot of things.
Yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Well, I think the panel also spoke about it, right?
Sure,
like I think it's appropriate that those things are probably covered elsewhere.
Okay.
But given that GST is a big component of the government's revenue stream, right? And there is still a lot of uncertainty around it. The e-way bill, which is being introduced today, the anti-profiteering clause, right? and we're seeing companies like HUL, etc., getting notices for the same, right? So is there some sort of clarity around that which you think beyond just like, growers for the startup community and smaller businesses in general, which is also affecting them?
Okay. You can pass the mic to Jasveer. He's from Quickstay. Jasveer is also in the process of incorporating another company. Jasveer, how is the question? How is the budget for you? And do you have any question for the panelists as well?
Yeah. So the one thing that I'm just trying to notice, when it comes to starting companies, definitely nowadays is very easy, right? So government has, one day form.
It's very easy. Okay.
But the one problem that
90 days.
So we'll tell you that another.
I've also started a company in the past, so I know that.
So we'll tell you that there's a current story that because shutting down company is very, very tough.
And you are trying to close one.
Right? Yeah. So it took almost 7-8 months to close down the company. I was trying to get out of it, and that's, I think,
Quickstay is like an OYO model.
Yeah. We are the similar model. Sure. So I'm just trying to understand that I was trying to close my previous business, which was sparehousing.com, and that it took 7-8 months, and tried to discuss with MCA how much time it's going to take. So there are a lot of things need to be done. I think government need to make some policy regarding the closure side, because in the startup the success ratio is very, very, very less. So it's not like if 50 companies started, 25 succeed. It's 10% or less than 10%. So I think government need to focus on that side also, and that's going to be a good kick to founders to launch another startup. Sure.
So starting a company is difficult, but closing it is even more difficult. If you want to tell Amarinder what all did you go through for closing your company and still not closed, and are you still paying your taxes and still filing the returns, by the way? It's been 2 years.
Without getting into specifics,
okay.
There are income tax department, sales tax department, every department digs up instances and wants explanation for things which don't exist. So you end up representing, and this is a problem not just with companies you want to close down, but even cases where angel tax is there. Tax authorities have their own reasoning, and it doesn't go with how a logical person would think about it, and there are no clear ways it's laid out. So when that situation is there, then the authorities are doing their job, but then founders do end up spending a lot of time in unproductive areas.
Sure. Ishan, we'll also come to the, how many of you know about Bitcoins, read about Bitcoins, are interested in them? So the government has said that, cryptocurrency is illegal. Bitcoin is illegal, but they support blockchain and they will use it somehow in their ledger frameworks. So any of you has a point to make, Shailesh, Kunal, Ishan, and Amarinder, any one of you?
I think we'll all have points to make.
Okay. Let's start with you.
I have.
Do you have a Bitcoin, by the way?
No, I don't have a Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because I think the government, generally the Indian government, tends to take a more pragmatic approach to most things. And I think in the case of what is happening with the froth in the Bitcoin cryptocurrency market, I think it is a positive step. Because I have seen so many people, they think by downloading an app which allows them to trade Bitcoin, they'll become millionaires overnight, right? When people see those lots of ads on Facebook enticing people to trade in Bitcoin, they forget it's like the US pump and dump story. Somebody's paying to artificially inflate to create this froth to use area, which is why we see people like Facebook have banned all ads relating to cryptocurrency. So in a sense, I think it is a welcome move by the government to ban trading in cryptocurrencies. I think it is something which definitely needs careful attention. People need to look at it. It's money we're talking about, and it's so in that sense,
so it's a welcome move.
I think it's a welcome move.
Okay.
I think it's a very welcome.
We'll come to you.
I feel that government is totally ignorant about how cryptocurrencies are going to behave.
Okay, the government is ignorant about cryptocurrency.
And this is a knee-jerk reaction saying that, oh, we can't do anything about it, just ban it.
Okay.
The entire design of cryptocurrency is such that it takes away the power from centralized control. When it's designed like that, you can't control it. I mean, this is the beginning years. You can control, of course, the access point of where you're purchasing it. But once the currency goes into circulation, it's impossible to figure out who did what transaction, how much value happened, which coin did you buy. So it needs a different kind of handling by the government. I think that the amount of understanding of that product is still low. And even blockchain is still a concept that still exists with the government. It's going to revolutionize and actually make some of the things that government does redundant. So by itself, it will work. When you look at land records, millions of land records, when they're going to be put in blockchain, the courts are going to be free.
So
There are court cases which go 20 years back.
As you know, has already started a project to put land records using blockchain technologies. That's actually being implemented now, which is a great thing.
Okay, Shailesh, you had a point to make, and you were telling a lot about it backstage.
So I think blockchain is one of the most important technology innovation in the last 200 years. I think it's one of the most important, right? The way it is going to change fundamentally, the business is going to happen, the rent collection is happening, and the society functions, right? So I think the most important innovation of the modern society, right? So banning too early, I agree with Amrinder, is kind of a knee-jerk reaction, right? It's not a good move.
So it's a knee-jerk reaction to ban cryptocurrency.
So some people losing some money and suddenly the government say, I ban it, right? I think it will kill the innovation because a lot of innovation has to happen. So when you say blockchain,
how many of you were thinking of investing in a blockchain startup? You
blockchain.
So I think blockchain.
Okay, all of you.
I think
will you now that the government?
Yes,
I'm not very
there's
sure.
A difference between,
Okay.
There's a difference between
You will go
blockchain
against the government, but
technology and
that's okay.
cryptocurrency, right?
No,
Cryptocurrency is a
here
byproduct.
there's a clarification here. So what is blockchain? What is cryptocurrency, right?
Two separate things.
So there is a blockchain, and blockchain is what? Blockchain is just a ledger. So whenever you need access to the ledger, obviously there's a cost involved, and there are people who are maintaining those ledgers, right? And you pay them people those costs. And that cost is basically a form of a token. So token, now people use the word currency because token as a limited number of tokens can be created. So the question is, will you not have a token if the blockchain is there? Will you have to have tokens, right? If the tokens there and their limited number won't be, they get increased in value, they will increase in value. So how you ban a cryptocurrency? So if you say
can't ban
word,
it. Okay.
it's
So
a
it's a knee-jerk
complex
reaction from the
thing.
government.
So you kill the whole thing.
Okay. Kunal.
So in a way, I'm glad the government has taken a stand.
Okay.
So till now, it was grey.
Grey
We
area,
didn't know whether it was allowed, not allowed. Internally, I've been shorting cryptocurrency and I've been people to stay away from it.
How many startup pitches have you seen on crypto?
I'd say about 2 or 3, not too many.
Okay.
Because I think we're still India as a country is way behind.
behind.
I think a lot of companies didn't want to start, especially because there was no clarity in terms of government policy. See, at the end of the day, they may have banned it today, but there's no reason to say the government may not change its mind 12 months down the road. It happens. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. What's important is, I think the hype around cryptocurrencies actually created awareness for blockchain. And what we feel is that's a good thing. Now, the important thing is the government is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They may have temporarily banned cryptocurrency, but because of the knowledge and awareness created around the use of blockchain, they have also said that they would be focusing on the use of blockchain to improve on the delivery methods of governance, which I think is a really good point.
Sure. Ishan.
No, I think, look, there are companies, as you know, most of the banks in India, led by State Bank of India, had adopted a common technology under a banner called Prime Chain, right? So 23 of the large banks in India on it. ICICI Bank and Yes Bank has just implemented a blockchain solution into receivables. It's a case study, Yes Bank with Bajaj Electricals. Axis Bank has implemented money transfer using blockchain. So I think, look, we need blockchain as technology, a distributed, blockchain is a distributed public ledger, right? Which is acronym is blockchain. I think it has many uses, and the government is already adopting the uses. Having multiple people create cryptocurrency around blockchain and then trading it and having unauthorized exchanges where every third person can come. There are about 10 instances of fraud where somebody has launched an ICO, initial public offering of a crypto bank, and it disappeared. Right? So the regulation of that is very important. We see a company like Ripple, which has done really well because they've become a standard in terms of a metric for blockchain to be used, as Shailesh mentioned, right? So earlier in the internet, we need protocol. So the TCP/IP was a protocol. Ripple has a protocol which is adopted by Bank Santander and other people. So yes, it's a great technology. Blockchain as a technology is very good to have rampant, to allow anybody to open an exchange unregulated where you're doing KYC, and we have friends of ours who invested in an Indian exchange. That needs a lot of regulation. People should forget, there was a reason we went from a gold standard to a currency standard, because gold was was a promise, real promise, right? So I think we should not go into something in a country like India where 10% of all trading in cryptocurrency happens by Indians now. So it's just become a fad.
No, it's a little bit contra logic, because when we are talking about crypto, it's not about regulation at all.
Yeah, correct.
Sure.
So it is
the point is there should be regulation.
No. That's you're totally missing the point.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to
there
that.
has to be.
No.
Okay, we'll come to that. Anyone has a question at this point of time in the audience? Okay, we'll come to crypto. But let the lady ask.
Hello, I am Srishti, and I want to ask that as we are commerce student and we are a little bit disappointed from the budget regarding jobs, so we can expect some new changes or new amendments from our government to increase jobs or to through entrepreneurship, which can increase our motivation.
Okay, okay.
Well, I
so
think
job creation.
I have a very simple that you can become an entrepreneur, and you can create a job for yourself. I don't think you should really be looking towards the government for creating jobs. I think it's important for us to recognize that why can't I become job creators? So I as a fund have invested in 23 companies. Each of them have created probably 10,000 jobs amongst them. None of them really worried or bothered about what the government was doing, which areas they were investing in. Ultimately, they found a pain point that a large segment of customers had, and they went about creating either a technology or a delivery method to solve that problem. So I think instead of trying to be job seekers, a lot of us start becoming job creators. That itself will create and solve a large part of the unemployment issue in the country.
I think the other, it's a good point. The other side of it is that not everybody will be an entrepreneur.
Correct.
I understand.
Correct.
So it's important to skill yourself right and don't think of yourself as a BCom. I mean, that doesn't mean anything in today's world. You go online, you have best of the universities in the world, Harvard, Stanford, and best of the courses available. So see what is it that you are interested in. Find your passion and study and skill yourself. You will be totally employable in any scenario.
Amrinder, since you touched on the touchy topic of education, and you've been an IIT Delhi alumnus and also IIM Ahmedabad, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
So what's the importance of education in starting up? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is a dropout. Bill Gates was a dropout. I mean, yeah, but let's come. Are these guys wasting the money?
But drop out from where?
Okay. So you should drop out from an Ivy League, right?
So getting in is tough. Getting into Harvard is tough. Dropping out is easy.
Okay.
So I think the issue is we get too much excited about dropping out these days. I've seen kids dropping out from IT also. I think that's not a good advice, right? The point is what Aminder said.
So don't drop out of Amity.
Just like that, because of fashion, right? Just don't drop out, right? Either you have some real reason, right? And I think what Aminder said, retool yourself. And I say passion is overrated. I say find whatever and just go deep into this. Build a passion around it, right? So we all have doing the career which we have not even heard of it. Yeah. So the point is what is very, very changing. I had not heard of venture capital in '99, right? When I did my MBA. Today I am a venture capitalist. So the thing is changing. The only issue is you have to retool yourself. Yeah. Government is not going to solve it.
Yeah. Retool yourself, find your passion, and you can be an entrepreneur. Anyone has a question? Okay, the lady has a question.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am Pooja Dikshit from Amity College of Commerce and Finance. So my question is, if the government gives ways to startups, there'll certainly be an increment in the growth, there'll be jobs. And so we know that by far the most significant source of funding is personal investments or angel investors and foreign investors. So then why aren't there any impactful mentions in the scheme in this budget 2018 about the growth and about the jobs? Like regarding the startups,
I think Indian government is still not sure whether they want to be a communist state or they want to be a capitalist state, right?
Okay. Indian government is not sure. Okay. Interesting. Anyone has a point to make?
Yeah, actually, look. So a lot of the venture capital associations, the angel investor groups, all lobbied extensively to the government to, So I in fact wrote a large article that the government should create a small business bank. They should allow equity crowdfunding.
Like in America, right?
Like in America, right?
SBA.
SBA is fantastic.
Right.
But the government has good intentions, but very little actually trickled to the ground. So when we come, when you as a student, when you look at a sector to invest in, one of the basis analysis you do is called a PEST analysis, right? Political, economic, sociological, and technology trends. If you're going to start a business where you're going to depend on anything political in India, we say stay away. Okay, so that's just a simple piece of advice. So don't bank on the government for your startup.
Regarding the budget this time, is it really focused on the rural sector? Doesn't the urban deserve to be towards growth?
Sure.
Personally, if you ask me, I think the
or is it an election budget? Just an election budget, nothing.
Largely, so if you look at the startup point of view, if you look at what the government has said about implementing technology in education, I think you will see a lot of edtech startups make a lot of money or gain traction with this budget. The government actually made a move on that front. If you look at startups which are in the network or infrastructure management space, when the government talks about smart cities and Wi-Fi hotspots, you will see money coming to startups in that specific space. You will see startups in healthcare benefiting. Government talks about social services. So obviously this budget has some factors which have influenced startups. Also, I think the government has taken a move in this budget to allow or motivate companies more to go towards issuing fixed deposits, right? So now the mutual funds are getting taxed, but the government seems to be incentivizing companies to come to the public market, and I'm sure we'll see some more financial intermediaries or more startups coming to cater to the demand. So look, around every budget there is opportunity. I think we should look at the opportunity that the budget presents.
Sure.
And that's what a smart entrepreneur should do.
Okay. Look at the opportunity. Yeah. The
I
gentleman.
just want to add one thing, that since sir said that 90% of the startup fails, since can we expect that government should start a new thing that they should give us expertise support? That is, when we start up, we are going to deal with the organized sector. We're going to deal with the big companies which have got better strategic departments, better management. Okay? As a just an entrepreneur, we are not practically we don't have the practical knowledge that how we'll deal with those problems. So can we expect that government should launch some expertise support so that we can deal with them?
Expertise.
Government has no expertise, my friend. There are lots of books available. Please pick a book and read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Government has no expertise.
Help yourself.
The books. Okay.
So I would
do
actually
you
like to point out here that large corporates actually create the least number of jobs in the country. Majority of new jobs are created by startups. And what you're asking for expertise, that's where we come in. Venture capitalists, angel investment, seed investors. That is the skill set, because we're all former entrepreneurs or investors. So we've been through multiple ups and down cycles and multiples of starting companies and making them successful. So don't ask the government to take that job away from me. Trust me, government is the worst allocator of resources amongst all the investment community.
Okay, government is the worst allocator. Jasveer, have you got any help from the government in your starting up days and in your current startup? Jasveer, you want to point out something?
Till date of today, nothing. There are I attend the event is Startup India. There are a lot of things is people are talking about. This is gonna happen. This is gonna. In a reality, I think is the ground is nothing at all. As an entrepreneur, last I think in 3 years.
I'm sorry to the government folks who are watching this. I'm sorry, but this is coming straight from the heart of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, last almost 5 years now, I'm into startup. I started in 2 companies, and I know that. Maybe there are a lot of policies, developing and implementing on, on TV, but nothing is happening on nothing is happening on a ground reality. Okay, now in terms of when it comes to large support, in terms of when I already discussed about that, and one more point I was just trying to discuss that I'm completely
okay. Shortly,
So just want to add to what he said.
Okay,
a real life example. There's a simple scheme called credit guarantee scheme, where you can get working capital. And I used to run a company where we needed working capital. So
Micromax, was that Micromax or
no? This was done by none.
So
you would need inventory.
Yeah,
so for inventory, why would you put your equity? Because that's the most expensive. You would want working capital. And there's this beautiful scheme that government has which says that you can get up to X crore in that scheme. And you could run your startup for years, and obviously they would need 3 years profitability to give you that.
That's in theory, right?
Yeah. I don't know who's ever got that credit guarantee.
Yeah,
apart
so
from
I can
business
take you. So the
majority.
government
don't
scheme,
make money.
if you look at the scheme,
Okay, shortly,
there are 3 yojnas,
brief,
okay?
yeah.
It's called Shishu, Kishore and Tarun. Okay?
Shishu, Kishore and Tarun.
Tarun are 3 yojnas of loans from 50,000 rupees to go upwards. But the problem is, to get that loan, you have to be profitable.
And no startup is profitable, by the way.
And once you're
So
profitable, any bank will lend to you, so you don't need them anymore.
So it's
where
a
is the
chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
No, the government should not be in
It
this
also
business.
comes to you guys, because when these guys come to you and they said that you have to show some traction, so it also becomes investors say, right?
It's not
So
that.
we never asked for profitability.
Okay.
No,
We
not
asked
even
for
traction. I
product.
think we invested
We
you
have
on
just-
PPT. So we invested done by none on a PPT, right? So there was nothing.
Do you regret closing it down?
That was great. No, he did the best shot, and
Sure,
they did create a brand.
Sure. You will fund him again.
Yeah, always.
Okay.
So the important part is
So failure is not the criteria that investors judge you
if
by.
the government in the budget says we are not doing any schemes, anything, I think that will be the best budget. That will be 10 out of 10 if the government doesn't launch any scheme.
Okay.
No, I have a side decision.
Okay,
I think
last
that
point
the government
before you wrap.
should let the private sector come in over there. They should perhaps partner with a private sector bank to launch the Indian version of USSB or something over here.
Sure.
The government trying to implement the schemes is the worst thing.
Sure. Sorry, we are out of time here. Thank you so much, audience, and thank you so much, panelists, for joining us. Finally, if you really want to start up, find your passion, find the problem that you're solving, and then approach these investors. Even if you fail, they'll fund you again. Thank you so much. It's been a great having you, and have a great day ahead. Yeah. Thank you so much.